Nick, I didn't think,
Yep. What was that, Faye?
oh, I was surprised. I didn't know Nick was going to take this.
Yep.
Good
Yeah,
to see
surprise
you.
you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. So I'll introduce myself first, just because I think there's four people I don't know. The others have been students. So I'm based in New Zealand. I'm an SP trainer. I also own a large organization here, which oversees and regulates hypnotherapy in New Zealand, and a training school. So I run things like diplomas. Um, I train for the Almans as well, the Alman Institute here, and a few other um, protocols. Like I said, what I tend to work on myself as a therapist is I work alongside mental health and psychiatrists working with more severe mind issues, PTSD, ADHD, dissociative disorders, and things like that, usually alongside a team of people. So my real basics is in mental health and trauma mostly. And I work in organizations teaching trauma-informed hypnotherapy as well. So in New Zealand, it's getting quite mainstream. So I do go into places like rape crisis and suicide prevention and stuff, and teach people how to work in a bit of a safer way than what they have been working with clients. So that's kind of my background. And with SP, I love the hypnotherapy trauma stuff, and I speak around the world on that. I teach a lot on memory consolidation, stuff like that. But then we have the spiritual and the more out there hypnosis protocols, which is this kind of stuff, which is really exciting. I love it. Absolutely love it. Um, yeah, so I started training as an SP trainer maybe 4 or 5 years ago with Ines. To do that, I had to go over to Canada and hang out with her for a bit, and we did crazy things like I remember one time I did a full session on Ines without saying a single word. And I was just sitting there and her fingers were lifting, and I thought, oh, you know what, this could be a bit of placebo, or, the things that go on with the mind. And then I asked her a question, which was I can't even remember what it was, but it required an answer where she had to lift up a couple of fingers. And so I asked her the question, like, how many things do we have to shift or something like that? And she held up her hand and went, and I was like, oh, this is a crack up. And I remember looking and going, this is really interesting. But from there, I've done a lot of training in psychedelics and, anything you can think of really when it comes to working with altered states. So for me, SP is, out of every hypnosis protocol I've used, it is the protocol I find best to get into states that are similar to if you were using medicine. Not so much first time with a client, but when you practice every week with someone that you trust, and you keep on doing it and you keep on doing it. For me, the states can get quite similar to some of the medicines that I've worked with, but in a very safe way. Um, yeah, so with that, I started my hypnotherapy career actually doing past life regression. It's what got me into, I was working in mind health anyway, but yeah, I was really fascinated with past life. And I remember I kind of dabbled in it. If you watched any of the training I've put on there, before I trained in hypnotherapy, I dabbled in like mini courses in past life, and I actually ended up causing a person to have a severe allergy. I wasn't even trained in hypnosis, and I was hanging out with a friend, and we bought this silly little course which came with a script, and I didn't understand imagination. I didn't understand the mind and how powerful it was, and how we can influence our physical body. And I remember we were just having fun, and I chucked her into this past life, and she's suddenly in this big field, and all this experience is happening. This is a long time ago, and when she came out, she just had these red eyes and couldn't stop sneezing. And I didn't know at the time that what I know now, and I speak around the world on the safety of hypnosis because I've done everything wrong. Like when I started working in hypnotherapy, I did everything wrong. So now I can tell people, don't do this and don't do this. And this is probably not a good idea. But with her, she had to actually go get medication. And now I just know that at the end you just say, you know, just to disconnect, or, you know, do anything to separate this lifetime from that one. It's actually real simple to not have that issue happen. But for me at the time, my personality does find things quite funny, so I was giggling about it, but my friend wasn't that much.
So, excuse me, Justine, so she brought in the allergy over from the past life. That's really
Into this lifetime, and
fascinating.
she had never had them before. We were horse riders, so we were around hay all the time, and she came back and she had red eyes and was sneezing, and I was like, that's odd. And then from then on she had hay fever. So it, you know, for me that was I've had a lot of experiences in my life, especially spiritual ones. I've had a very good near-death experience in 2019. I've experienced a lot, and for me, I look back and I go, right, that happened, so now I need to teach people when I'm teaching about the safety of it. And, you know, and I had many experiences like that where I've learnt the hard way. So in that one, it could have just been a simple suggestion of, you know, of separating those lifetimes, or, you know, to have sorted that out. But at the time, like I said, I didn't even know what was going on. It was just a bit of fun. And I think I bought the course online for $20 or something. Would have been a long time ago. I don't even know if Udemy was around then, but it definitely taught me the power of the mind. From there, that's when I got into hypnotherapy and the safety of it. And you know, getting into what is the mind, what's going on in the body, what's going on with memories, and so on and so on. But in my time learning past life, I learnt with a wonderful lady in New Zealand. Now, out of all the trainings I've done, hers is the best training, hands down, for safety, and that's Dawn Kelly. It's a lady in Rotorua. I trained with Dr. Bruce Goldberg, went through all the QHHTs, you name them, I did it in past life, because I was really fascinated. I really wanted to know what was going on, whether it was true, whether it was not true. Yeah, so I kind of went down that path extensively. And like I'm going to talk about today, the biggest thing I found in most of the protocols that go into past life is a lot of the time they teach you how to get in and out, but they don't teach you how to be safe in there. So even when I'm working with people now more in a clinical setting that have done past life, I've had to teach people what to do when people come out and they've actually experienced trauma in the past life, and it's carried through to their life now. So they're actually affected this time. And they don't talk a lot about how that happens, but it does happen. It can happen 100% hands down. I remember one of my students saying she did a past life practice for one of her trainings, and the client was screaming after a session because when she came out, the memories that she had been in was so real that it influenced her now today. And she didn't know because she hadn't done any training on how to navigate that today. And I remember sitting with Brian Weiss in Australia, and everyone, there's hundreds of people there in this huge place, and everyone was just going into a past life, just a basic past life. Everyone in the room, hundreds of people in this past life. And then I went back to the hotel, and it was the same hotel he was, and in the middle of the foyer was this girl, and she was panicking and she was screaming and she was asking to speak to him, and his support person was coming. I mean, he's an old fella now, you know, there's no way he can do a whole day seminar and then work with people. But the guy kept on saying, he can't come and help you. You're going to have to go home and find someone to help you. And this girl was probably only about 22, and she was in massive trauma, like massive trauma. She was petrified. And they just gave her a card and left her in the middle of this blooming thing. Like, so when I went and talked to her, she had to catch a train from where she was back to her house, and she was a mess. And what had happened when we were talking, and I ended up doing a bit of hypno in the foyer of a hotel, was the experience she had. She was not from Australia. She was from someplace in the Middle East, and her family had been bombed when she was young, and that's why she was living in Australia now. And the past life had taken her back into this memory, and her brain and her body was in a memory now, and it hadn't been no disconnection. It was supposed to be just a little experimental play thing that was going on, but it doesn't always work like that. Do you know what I mean? Our mind's going to do what our mind's going to do. So it was easy helping her get into a space, but at the same time, once again, it showed me that when we play with the mind and memories and whatever else we're doing, we've got to be quite safe about it. Does that all make sense? Yeah. So yeah, in past life, done lots of training. It's the coolest session. And one thing I found right now is I don't know what it's like overseas, but in New Zealand, the cost of living is pretty high. So there's times that hypnotherapy itself kind of, people aren't so prepared to pay for boring old mental health stuff like anxiety and unless it's quite extreme, and weight loss and things. But what I do find is no matter how the world is, spiritual processes seem to rise when times are hard. And I think it's because people get so lost that they want to find some kind of meaning in life. And I find that things like past life regression and other kind of protocols, I've got friends that do readings and all of that, it kind of chips away and keeps on being sweet as, even when times are hard for other businesses. So I think people are quite attracted to it just so that they can make some sense of the world if they can, or find meaning. And so it's quite a good thing to have, to be able to do. So I'm just going to check a couple of things in the chat. I'm just going to share it again. If you are not on the Facebook group, copy link, put it down here. If you click this link, it'll take you to Messenger, and you just ask to join the chat. And it's just a chat group of people that have done the past life. And so if you did want to practice with someone or meet up with someone in the class, you can. Yeah. And also, is everyone on the Guru Can? Now, the Guru Can is the HNZ school platform where the past life stuff is. Did everyone log into that? Yep, sweet.
Yep.
So that's where you find the manual and any kind of trainings and stuff. On the platform, I think I also gave you the SP just as a bonus. Just see if I can get onto it on here. The SP app. Did people download that app? It doesn't have the past life on it, but it came under bonuses. I'll just show you it because it's really cool. Where's it? Guru Can. Just go to preview. What I did when I was doing some protocol was I found the manuals really big and bulky, and all of the questions were quite hard to sift through, especially the questions that were like very long. So what I did was I turned it into a app, which is, I love making apps and doing techie stuff. So the app itself, let me see if I can pull it up for the people that don't have it, is for you to use with your clients if you want to, instead of a manual. It's really easy when you're doing online sessions because you put half of the person on the screen and you put half the app on the other side. And the app is made so it's completely interactive. So if you go into the script, you go through and it will do each question bit by bit. So if you're out and about, or if you're you know, doing a session and you want to have it on your phone, for me it's on here. So if I'm doing SP anywhere, it's in the phone app, I just log on to there and I've got all of the scripts there. It's all interactive, so if you want to go and do chakra, it will click into the chakra sessions. So the whole thing's kind of interactive and you can go to your sections. So it's quite a cool little app to be using. Yeah.
We'll have access to all of this.
Yeah, I just put it at the bottom. It does have my learning center too, but you guys have learned SP, so
That is, I am so grateful for that. Thank you.
yeah, you will find it's been, I call it Kiwiized. I don't know if it's not a word, okay? It's a Justine word. What I mean by that is in New Zealand, we like things to be super simple and not hard. So if you go through and look at the questions, a lot of the questions have been made a little bit easier Like you'll find that when we're setting up the yes no finger, we actually set it up in the induction. So we only just ask for a no and do the yes and no's. There's some more questions added. We log in piece deep and high at the start and not at the
Oh,
end. So what you'll find is there's a couple of
Mm.
little, it's easy to understand, as basic as like I said, it's Kiwi styles. So it's just been, it's exactly the same process, but the questions have been written down in a really easy to read way. Yeah, and like I said, the reason why I just put piece deep and high at the start, so we lock in piece, we lock in deep, we ask the mind to map it, and we lock in high at the time that they're at the states, because that we know even with anchoring, and we know when doing psychedelics and stuff, that if you actually lock the state in while the mind is at that, the mind will actually map that state, and it's easier for the client to get there. So just there's a couple of little things that are different. I'm not saying the other one, I mean, SP is, Anessa's SP is perfect. It's just that, like I said, for readability, it's just pretty straightforward. Yes, no, yes, no. Written a little bit simpler, put it that way, than in the manual. Does that make sense?
yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty pretty easy to kind of navigate through the questions. Yeah, so yeah.
So you said this was an app. How did you get to this?
Okay, so for you to get to the app, if you go into your platform
Yep.
and you go into bonus, if you did not learn SP from me,
Okay.
and then you click on this. Now, when you click on the app, you want it's made for your phone. Like you can see that you can use it on a computer. It just doesn't look like a normal website. It's very clean. It's because it's made for a phone so that you can have your script with you wherever you go. When you log in to this one here, you need to go to the side and click these three dots on the right hand side.
Okay.
And what will happen is it will come up with, I'm going to risk it and sign out because I never know my passwords. When you go to sign in, see, that's how many times I've signed in because I always forget. This little blue sign up button. So you're going to yourself go in here
Okay.
and sign up. Now, if you're with a client and for some reason you've forgotten your password like I do every day, you can go in there and sign up using an email that doesn't even exist. I've even made up an email that was swearing because I got sick of doing it. I was like, stupid thing. And I actually wrote that as my email address and it still let me in. I still go and delete the ones that aren't real later, but you can actually just create an account if you ever got stuck, you know. But that there, yeah, was just made for ease of use. And like I said, I work solely online for training people and clients. And for me, it's like I will have, if I'm doing an SP session, I'm having half of my computer as my client, the other half is the app. And that way I'm never looking down or flicking paper around or any of that carry on. When I'm with clients in person, if I'm using, I haven't done it for a long time, I tell my clients, look, this process has a lot of questions, like 50 odd, and I don't know them all off by heart. So my app for this process is on my phone. So if you do see me on here, I'm not on Facebook, I swear to you. I just joke with them. But that's why I let them know. And usually it's set up on my phone and I get them to close their eyes. I'll start doing the induction and then I'll use my phone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just makes it quite a lot easier than a big manual and things to sift through, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're
So
welcome.
Justine.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I did look when you said download the app, I did have a look to download it, but I couldn't find it like on the Apple Store or anything. It is just a web app, isn't it?
So yeah, it's just a
Yeah,
web app.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you literally just click the
Yeah. And it worked fine too, so not a problem. Yep. It's good.
yeah. No, we don't. I make a lot of apps. Like all of my courses come with an app. So like my diploma has the diploma training. And then on the diploma, I have an app where the students have everything they need in session so that it's there on their phone wherever they go type thing. I know when I started training in hypnotherapy, we had the big folders with the papers. So for me now, it's a lot nicer just being here, as long as I didn't lose my phone, because then times would be pretty tricky for me. But yeah, so that's on there. And it's, like I said, it's just a bonus. It's just for people that jump on. It was made just to make things a little bit easier doing the SP. On the platform, you guys have got a little manual, which has got the script in the back of how we do Past Life. And who actually went through and watched the videos? Or did you wait for today? Yeah.
Yep.
So you might be a bit bored. We are going to watch Caroline's one today. Caroline's a good friend of mine. That I did a Past Life one. I'm just going to share now. Share this manual. So who has done Past Life not in like as a training outside of SP?
I have.
I
Yeah,
have,
awesome.
I have to.
Yep, so you're trained in Past Life. So 3 of you are.
Mhm.
Okay, so there are some differences with past life regression and normal, what we would call more therapeutic or clinical hypnotherapy. What we should actually talk about very quickly is what the theories are around past life actually at the moment. Because there's many different reasons why, or there's many different ideas of what is going on in the mind when we have a past life, right? And even recently, I've got 2 new bits of research that I found really freaking exciting when it comes to past life. It's really important that when we're working with clients, no matter how stuck we are on what reality is like, it is so important that when we're working with clients that our belief system is very open, meaning there'll be people that tell you straight out their past lives are past lives. And when you do hypnosis and past lives, it's what it is. And we have a linear lifetime and our soul evolves and we choose our family and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, until we die, are we really going to know that? Do you know what I mean? Even if we are very spiritual, like I said, I've had a near death and I got to have an experience of not being around here anymore and coming back, and I'm still have no freaking idea really. I've got my ideas on things. But when we're working with clients, even if we do past life, it's really important that our clients understand that it could be a mix of things of what's going on in a past life regression, right? There's theories that we have, the normal theory is that we have a soul and the soul comes back lifetime after lifetime to experience things so that we can evolve, right? That is pretty much the basic, what people think past lives are, so that we're quite a individual linear being that experiences and comes back one at a time. I kind of said it on the video where there are experiences and things that people have that kind of don't match that. Like I said, if you watch the video, the amount of people that have gone to an incredible past life that they can even pull back to, but they're all going back to the same one, like Cleopatra, or they're having these same experiences. Do you know what I mean? I looked up and wanted to see how many people had gone back to a lifetime of being Jesus, and it's huge, and a lifetime of being Cleopatra, and it's huge. And they believe 100% that they were there because it happened in hypnosis. Do you know what I mean?
So if that wasn't imagination, then could that be accessing the Akashic records or something?
That's what I'm going to talk about soon. So so the idea of linear lifetimes that people have, it could be, and sometimes we could be going back to that. So that's kind of the stock standard, past life thing. I've had people that have gone into lifetimes that are around right now. So in other words, they're in a lifetime, but they're in England and they're alive now, but a bit older than they are now. Born prior to this lifetime, but they're experiencing and they've been able to find the person. Do you know what I mean? There's another idea which I really like, and this was more my experience when I had a near death and stuff, is that we're all connected as one being, so that the idea of being able to go into anybody's lifetime is accessible. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, where we can go into states and access whatever we need, or whatever lifetime we need to get, whatever we need to get out of the past life that we're wanting. And that would explain why people can have experiences in past lives of going back to the same person. Do you know what I mean? Over and over, you know, 5 people. And I find that a lot easier to sit in my mind. Well, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So we've got the linear lifetime. We've got the idea that we're actually tapping into some kind of collective unconscious, which means we can access any lifetime we want for whatever reason. I do, like I said, I do like that one. What else there is? There is metaphor, that our mind is creating a story or an imaginative picture to give a person the healing that it needs. And I'm telling you right now, a lot of the past lives you do will be imagination and metaphor, and they will be just as powerful as if it was real. Do you know what I mean? Because it's about the healing of the client when they come in. So yeah, it could be metaphor. What other things? I can't think off the top of my head right now. So
I did watch your video, and I think you mentioned
memories
maybe
in the body.
right, yes, you mentioned that, yeah, and
Yeah.
also maybe there's somebody's consciousness close by or something
Yeah,
as well.
thank you,
Yeah.
because I didn't remember those two. So one is that we now know, because when I teach trauma and implicit memories are memories that are stored in the brainstem and into your body, which we now call it trauma memories. We know that those memories were stored in our body from our ancestors all the way back, and that's what causes our startle responses that we have as we walk through life, where we jump and we don't even know why we're jumping. So could we be tapping into memories of our ancestors? Hell yeah. And that's got some evidence to back that one, which I freaking love. And then the other thing I've experienced with doing past lives, and I even experienced it once myself, when I've talked to people in session, is that it's almost as though an energy of another lifetime is around the person, what we would call an entity or a ghost, you know, that kind of theory, and it's close to the person for whatever reason. So have they gone into lifetimes and experiences that are totally their own? I've had people where we've found out where it's actually an attachment style thing going on, where we've had to actually just send it home, but they've been picking up the memories of an energy that's around the person. And I had that once in a place where there was an energy around, and I suddenly went into the lifetime of that one to see what the experience was and sent it on its way as a little boy. So there's so many things that we could be tapping into when we're doing past life regression. So it's really good to just keep an open mind about it, and to be quite clear with our clients that we're not 100% sure. So when they walk away, that their mind is open to things. They're not going to go, the amount of people that say, well, I was this and I was that, and this happened to me and this happened to that, and this person told me, who looks at people, can say their lifetimes that I was drowned, and you know what I mean? It's a really good idea to keep your mind open to what things are, and to tell our clients there's so many things that could be going on, and every one of them is cool. Like for me, even the idea that the brain our mind can come up with an imaginative whole lifetime story that is so real that causes healing in our body now, to me is just as cool as any other thing. Some cool research recently that I heard was, which I really like, because I'm always on the fence about everything, never 100, always curious about what's what. Like I delve in the world of working with people in mental health that you would swear would be demons. We're talking black eyes, male voices coming out of females. I've seen it all, and I still am on the fence because I've seen people doing it due to trauma, and I've seen people doing it because of crazy stuff going on, and it's very similar. So like when I see things and do things, I'm always really wanting to know what's going on in the brain, and where is this stuff coming from. So recently there was a study on the brain when people were having past life regressions. In hypnosis, the frontal lobe fires up, the imaginative part of the brain fires up, right? When we're doing imaginative stuff in hypnosis. In this research, when they were doing past life, the imaginative part of the center didn't fire up, and neither did the hippocampus, the memory part of the center. The part of the center that fired up was the part of the center that is actually perception and visualizing stuff from outside of ourselves. So what were they visualizing? Do you know what I mean? So for these people, it wasn't the imaginative part of the brain making up shit stories. They weren't going into the memory center and firing up memories from long ago. They were seeing something different. And to me, I thought that was quite exciting. I was like, weird. It was part of the back of the brain where that was firing up in past life regression. So very
And does
different
the
if we were doing a lifetime. Yep.
sorry to interrupt. And does the third eye use that same part of the brain? Do you know?
That's something different. I'll talk about that in a minute.
Mm.
But I would imagine that would fire up. So with the part of the brain where the information comes in through our senses, through our eyes, and then is given the information through, when we do regression going back in this lifetime, we're accessing different parts of the brain. So there was a difference in past life to this life. Does that make sense? What I understand from the third eye and those different parts of the brain is that there's little crystals in our brain that are like this, what Bruce Lipton talks about, little receptor cells sitting on top of these little crystals that are little receivers that bring in information that's past our five senses. Does that make sense? So I don't know how they'd be able to test that, but I'm pretty damn sure it's opening up. When you go into Bruce Lipton's research on the pineal gland and all of that, it's pretty cool. The little crystals and the little receptor cells look exactly like the old-fashioned radios where they used crystals to pick up signals and information. And we've got the same system in the middle of our brain, which is picking up information that's different to our normal senses. So, but I don't know how they test that. They were saying it shouldn't even be there and that it's just this really old, archaic part of our brain that serves no purpose. And Bruce Lipton was like, nah. Now, speaking of Mr. Bruce Lipton, this is something I found fascinating that he only shared recently. I went and saw him up in Auckland. And I love all his work because a lot of his work centers around hypnosis and hypnotherapy. So he's pretty much a front man in our world. And a lot of my diploma is based around his research. Now, he's in his 80s and he was standing up there and he didn't get too much into it. But oh my God, I've seen him so many times and it's always the same stuff, which is exciting. But I didn't expect to hear anything different to what he always says. And at the end, he said, oh, just quietly, we've been able to track the energy field that comes out of a person, what they call spirit. So they've been able to take cells out of a person, put those cells in a petri dish 340 miles away, influence the cells in the body, and the cells will change instantly 340 miles away. So they know that information is being sent from our body and they haven't been able to track how far it goes. It just keeps on going. They can track the information or energy or electrical field that's coming out of our body, right? Where he got into, this is where it got fucking fascinating, I'm telling you. He talked about how our cells have these little receiver cells and they're actually reading our magnetic field. So this is our consciousness coming into our body, right? But what he said was when people died, they could still, when the body was gone, they could still read that electromagnetic field, and it was individual to everybody. So the field stayed there of the person, still there. And then what he said, the field stays there until an embryo is born with cells and receptor cells, self-receptor cells, that match the energy of the field, and then it all process is all done over again. So they're proving reincarnation. And I thought, oh, that is so exciting. And so I went to his next one day talk, hoping he'd get into it. And then he got through all the basic stuff and the basic stuff. And when it got to spiritual, which is what I wanted to know, time was up. And I was like, for fuck's sake, this is like what I've been wanting for ages. And I wanted more proof. I need to have physical proof for things. I don't just take things as they are. I tell you what, doing hypnosis and hypnotherapy, you would think it is good for spirituality, but I found it really difficult because in class I can have someone, I can say to someone, there's a ghost over in the corner of the room in hypnosis, go and have a conversation and tell me about them, and they will and come back. I just made it up because they're hypnotized. You can get people to do anything. So now I question a lot of reality. Do you know what I mean? So it's actually made me need more proof of life after death and stuff because of the crazy things we can do with people in trance, that resemble spiritual things. But yeah, so there is some real cool, and I mean, when you look at past life regression, there's thousands and thousands of kids that remember their lifetimes, and I know when I had my near death, they did. I went to this university place that people study you, and there was just thousands of people that have had very interesting experiences about what's going on and what they remember. So, but the good thing to remember is when we do this kind of work, that we are, I don't know if fluid's the right word, but we're really open-minded, and to keep our clients' minds safe, that we're really open-minded about what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That we just keep a real open-minded idea, because in past life, depending on the language we use, the reason why I call it life exploration is because we might be going into what we would call past lives, like time before now, if time was linear. I've had people go sideways, like I said, go into lifetimes that are happening right now, but in a different country, and that's like really weird. When were you born? 1952 or 1960. I'm like, let me do the math. Okay, and how old are you now? And then of course we go into forward lifetime. We can purposely take people into the future, into future lifetimes to get information. If people believe that we come here and we learn and we evolve, and we go home and we come back and we learn and evolve and we get better, then what's wrong if people have that belief system? Then what's wrong taking them 5 lifetimes into the future, getting that information, bringing it back to now, so you don't have to bother with it? Do you know what I mean? There's so many things we can do, but for me it's more life exploration, because we're kind of going in any direction. And when you are doing past life regression, you might go into lifetimes of aliens, or if you've listened to Dolores Cannon, you're going to get that stuff. I've had a lifetime where someone's become a rock. I've had a lifetime where someone's become water. You name it, it's happened. And like I said, imagination or not, I don't know, but the learning they get is pretty profound. If you go into shamanic stuff, they believe that in the afterlife we have our life here, and then we go into the life of stone and crystals, which is its own plane, and then they believe you go into the animal existence, we're all consciousness of animals, and then you go into human existence, and then you go into higher realms. And so if someone has that kind of belief system within them, then the idea of them jumping into a lifetime of a stone, it's in their reality of the world. You know what I mean? So it can happen. Yep, Nick.
Just about going into the future lifetimes. I mean, one thing that occurred to me looking at the whole ascension thing is they might be born into higher dimensions that we don't have the possibility of understanding. Has that happened? Like what actually happens then?
I've gone into, I don't know, Megan, if we did it once where it's more like people have gone into other realities that you would call more alien-like, where they don't have a body. I remember having doing a past lifey type thing, or if it's just a weird experience, where I went into a lifetime where we didn't have a body because we had apparently evolved past a physical body, but consciousness was still there, and we were still kind of separate, if you put it that way, as a form of telepathy. So you just kind of, for me, because we don't really know what's real and what's not real, and like I said, most of the time when a client tells you what they believe in, it tends to shape where they go. Do you know what I mean? It tends to shape where they go. When I'm working with people that really believe in entities and demons and all of that kind of stuff, you can guarantee they're coming in the session. Be prepared. If someone has that belief system, you're going to have it. Superconscious, shift it, send it like, whatever you need to do, see you later. But I know the minute someone says, someone told me that entities are attracted to me, they're always around me, so I need to go monthly to get cleared. I was like, what a great business model. I had a client that told me that, and only one healer could do it, and he charged about 120 a month to clear her. And I was like, fuck, okay. We need to get some shakers, and I might do that too for 120 months for 10 people. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, good business model. But you know, people are going to bring in. So if people believe that, if they had been told by someone in a past life they were a woman that drowned, and they kind of share that with you, and they're thinking about that, they're most likely going to see. They're most likely going to see it in hypnosis. They're most likely going to be directed there, real or imagined. And like I said, my theory now is kind of that we all have we all have this collective thing. So if I wanted to go into the lifetime of Megan right now, I could probably go into trance and go into her energy and her memories. I don't think it would be that hard. So I think it's to find what we want would be, yeah, Megan's quite open too. She's easy to work with. No, I'm kidding. Take possess your body. No, I'm kidding. But you know what I mean? I think people go where they need to go. I did share on that video when I did hypnosis on a chick that was closed-minded, didn't believe anything. If you've listened to it, I'll share it again. This chick, and she's a hard horse chick, man, I tell you what. And we were doing weight loss. And she has zero conversation about open-minded stuff. And she has no belief. She thinks it's bullshit. She won't even go there, almost to the point of fear. And we're doing past life, and we're not doing past life. We were doing weight loss. And at the time I was doing this go back to a feeling thing. And she suddenly screamed because she had the hugest shoulder pain. And she's a big chick, and she was, "Wah! My shoulder." And I was like, "What's happened?" She goes, "There's an arrow." And then I'm like, what the fuck? Because this is not the person it's going to happen to. It's not even in her world, the idea. It's never a conversation with this. It's not even in her reality. And anyway, and then next minute she was under the dirt, and she had been put in the dirt, and she's suffocating. And so we brought her out of that. She never did hypnosis again. At least I know her. She's not like a random client that came off the street. Never did hope, but we weren't allowed to talk about it. I looked at her and I said, "It's just imagination, man. It's just your mind brought up something. We don't know what it is. We shifted it. It's all good. Don't worry about it." But nah. And for me, it was real. I'm telling you, when you hear noises like that, you don't make that shit up. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, she that was not in her world. It was not in her reality. It was not something that I would have ever thought would have happened. So I find that fascinating. When I work with spiritual people that believe in it, going back to a past life, you usually don't even need to do an induction. It's just like, close your eyes. Where are we going today? Because it's so much in their reality and their world. But when things happen, when it's not in someone's reality, I find that really, really fascinating, because it's just not expected. Yep.
So that kind of speaks to the need for setting expectations, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're doing, and that's really important, in New Zealand, because I run a big organization, if anybody in the world of hypnotherapy goes out of scope of practice or causes harm in New Zealand, I get a phone call. My students have heard this because it's a yuck one. but a phone call I had last year was a spiritual hypnotherapist that didn't put on their website that they were spiritual. It was clinical hypnotherapy. Told someone in hypnosis that they were an alien. The girl happened to have psychosis and was 19 years old. She shouldn't have been touched by a hypnotherapist at all unless they had mental health training. And so she was in hospital after cutting her skin off her face because she didn't want her, she didn't want her human skin on her body anymore. That was put by suggestion in trance onto a girl with psychosis that shouldn't have been touched by a hypnotherapist introducing spiritual concepts to a person that doesn't have that. It makes me so angry. Someone in Australia, I had to work with a woman who couldn't leave her house because she went and had weight loss hypnotherapy in Australia with someone who told her that the weight she was carrying was entities. Now, she was not spiritual. Her website was not spiritual. She was going for clinical hypnotherapy for weight loss. It messed with her so much that she couldn't go to work. She was on some kind of Medicare thing that they do over there for mental health because she believed there was demons outside getting at her because someone had told her in hypnosis was trying to clear entities from her. And I'm just like, so for me, it is so important that when you do hypnosis, you present yourself 100% as you are. If you're an open-minded spiritual person and you and do that in your hypnotherapy clinic, your website has to resemble that in some way. If you're doing clinical hypnotherapy, you do clinical hypnotherapy. If the person comes in and they're like, oh my God, do you do past lives? And they're wanting weight loss, I'm like, if that's what we need to do for weight loss, we're doing it. But they told me that that's part of their reality. So I'm walking into their world. But we don't bring people into our world. We work in their world. So even with past life, if you're doing a past life session, people book in a past life session. If you're doing SP and you want to include past life in it, it's on your website that it's part of what you do. So it's just really important to always that all your socials, your websites and everything represent who you are, and you stay within the bounds of what you present yourself as, unless the client brings it in. Like the amount of clients that come in for clinical hypnotherapy and sit down and then suddenly tell me they're spiritual and they tell me this and they tell me that, and I'm like, well, that kind of opens up a whole new level of things we can do, and they're excited. But I won't tell them that. Does that make sense, Nick? Yeah. Yeah. So with the SP in past life, what's really cool is you can just incorporate it into your SP sessions. So you can just do the language. So in that question where they say, hey, superconscious, are there any past lives, interdimensional stuff that needs to be shifted? Yes or no? Yep, shift it. Do what needs to be done, and then you move on. If you did want to just bring it in, go to the first one, like we do with the normal, this lifetime things, we can just do past life like that, just include it into a normal SP session. What I like to do is have it as its standalone thing. So doing past life regression, but within the realms of SP. So doing it in an SP way, if that makes sense. Doing past life in an SP way is a hugely safe way to do it, because we have really simple, easy questions and things that are said to get people out of situations that might not be good. Do you know what I mean? Super conscious. Do whatever needs to be done to sort this out. Let me know when it's done. Do you know what I mean? We can say that if the shit hits the fan and know that our client is safe. Yep.
Tell me if I'm asking too many questions, but
That's fine.
I'm interested in LBL as well, life between life. Yeah. Would you recommend against going there until some training is had, or under SP again, do you feel that it's kind of associated with past life, isn't it? But
It's the same thing. We're just
okay. All right.
outcomes.
Okay.
So that's what I did forget to say for anyone that hasn't trained in past life. If you were to train actually in past life on its own, you would be doing a big training. And you would need to be doing a big training because it's not safe, like they say. It's not like I've experienced it. Tattooing with people's perception and memory and stuff. It's not a safe thing to do if you don't know what you're doing. So normally, like say with me in all my trainings, I've done a lot of hours of trainings. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, there's a lady here that teaches and she's amazing. And I recommend her course because it's got a lot of safety in it. But when we're doing SP, the reason why we can do it quite quickly is because we're using quite different language using superconscious. Do you know what I mean? We're going into scenes and exploring scenes. Then we're asking superconscious to do whatever needs to be done in that scene and shift it so we can move on to another one. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of the time, and when I did training in past life, someone would be burning in a fire. God, everyone goes to fires and burning. Do you know what I mean? It's part of our history. You know, so they'll be in a fire burning and we're not taught. Okay, and blah, 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 just this language of exploring it. Okay, and then once it's too freaky, okay, go to the next scene. And then the next scene that they're still inside, they're still burning up from the last one. You're not taught how to shift energy from events. And research shows 100% with hypnosis that and this is why I teach on the dangers of regression. You've got to be so careful doing regression with people that have had bad experiences in childhood. Because in hypnosis, when someone experiences something, their whole physiology is changing. 100%. So if you're working with people that have had abuse in childhood, which is why, like I said, I teach a lot on this, if you take them back to watch the observed abuse to get the positive learnings, which is not okay, even from a third person perspective, for that 2 minutes you're in that scene, you are changing the physiology of the person. So even if they come out feeling clear and good, you have caused trauma in their cells for those 2 minutes. Proven with the brain. So for me, it's like, even like I said with past life, you might be taking someone into a past life and they're burning. If they're having an emotion coming up in their body, then in that moment, their physiology is feeling it. And when they've gone into research into pain in the brain, it's really cool. When you get someone to visualize their future, what they want to be, and you put them into them and they feel it, your brain actually creates a memory of that as real as every other memory. So their mind now has to move towards it. And that's the same as when they burnt people's hands on brain scans, and then they got them to remember being burnt. They could not detect in the brain which one was the being burnt and which one was the memory. Does that make sense? So we do create physiological change in the body in a positive way and in a not positive way. In a positive way, we take a stroke person into the future or into the past where they've walked. Their brain will fire up as if they're walking and their rehab will be better, quicker. Does that make sense? So when we're working in past lives and stuff, even though the brain's presenting in a different way, we still need to remember that that kind of thing could be happening. Do you know what I mean? Our clients are experiencing on a cellular level changes when we do experiences with them. Did you have a question, Nick?
I was just going to, just on the proof about that, I was just going to ask, have you heard of Dr. Harmer?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Human
Because
medicine,
kind of
yeah.
along that's kind of
Yeah.
along those lines too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Christoph, the SP trainer in Belgium,
Mm.
he calls in Dr. Harmer at the start of the sessions to help him in the sessions. And he said it's almost like Dr. Harmer takes over his voice. It's quite cool. But yeah, so there's a lot of, and this is why when I teach on safety or speak at conferences on safety, the hypnotherapy world, because the research hasn't catched up with what we're doing, we have to be very aware of what's going on in the hypnosis session, even though they feel great when they leave. Are we keeping them safe in the session? And that's why with me, with past life, you would definitely do a lot of training before you do that. But we have because of the way we work, which is quite, yeah, we just super conscious, do this. We've got quite a good way of shifting things very quickly and moving people from even to divine, go to divine for a second. You know what I mean? We have a way of moving, do you know, through states that makes it a lot, makes it quite safe for us to work. Now, if you want to do life between lives or go to records or go to any places that you believe in, or any places that you know about, you just guide the person there with SP. Super conscious, can we do this? Let's do it. What are you experiencing? Does that make sense? So God, I'd be doing anything. If you've got people willing to do it, I'd be doing it. Yeah.
Have
Is it
you
in their
ever
high
done, have you ever done like a life, something that interests me? I've done group past life regressions, but I do it where I set the intention ahead of time, going back to a blah, blah, blah. Have you done a group going into life between lives, kind of leading them
No.
like to halt, etc.?
No, but I think we do. I think that's just pretty straightforward hypnosis anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
when you think of going, so if you wanted to go to a hall of records or something like that, it's what we do in hypnosis anyway.
Gotcha.
You know, there's
I
no
just feel,
difference to me. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I just think it's really fascinating at this time to just help to maybe open people's consciousness or, yeah. And
100%.
the other question I have is on Dr. Bruce Lipton's info. I read the biology belief. Obviously, he must have written. Is there any particular
Many
book?
books. His latest one is called Conscious Evolution.
Conscious Evolution.
And he's got, but I don't know if he's putting this new research in because when he shared it, I have never heard it before. So it might be his latest research. He's starting to write a book now on his theory of evolution. He's got conscious parenting. He's got the honeymoon effect. Oh my God, if you're working with clients, it's a great book to read because we do it anyway. But he talks about how when you meet someone and you fall in love, all your health conditions go away mostly. You lose weight, your skin's shiny, life is great, everyone suddenly becomes fantastic. And it's not the meeting of the person, it's the hormones, the oxytocin and the dopamine and the shit going on in your brain. But what he says is what we do in hypnosis is why are we not anchoring that state and making it our state every day? Why do we need someone to fall in love with to get it? But don't we do that in hypnosis anyway with divine? Locking in divine. I teach my clients to go to the forest, put yourself in divine, open your eyes and walk in it. Because it's like being on San Pedro. Everything's shiny. If you're really good at it, you start to see the glow between the trees. Do you know what I mean? It's very close to medicine if you get very good at it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not a medicine junkie. I haven't done it for a year or two, but I can't say that I don't like it because I do. But to me, like hypnosis, SP is very similar when you get good at it, you know, when you practice it. SP, you would have heard this if you've listened to me talk about hypnosis. I put people on a heart math machine that does your heart rate variability. And that's kind of got to do with the way your brain and your heart connects together. And going into a state of kind of what the Heart Math Institute did was they measured the heart rate variability of lots of monks and people that were accessing extraordinary states of consciousness. And then what they did was they were able to find out how to put normal people into those states, the breathing that you need to do, and they created a machine that tests it. I've got the machine and it's really cool. So you can teach people how to get into these coherent states. They use it for firemen and police and stuff so that they can regulate quickly. So what I did, Justine, as she does, is I started putting people in hypnosis onto this machine to see what happens. When I was doing normal hypnosis on people, they would go into beautiful coherent states. Coherence is when the wave, there's a number that goes, the higher coherence or the higher state you're in that's good for your health, the higher the number goes. And there's these waves. When they're like this, it's anxiety, coherence are beautiful waves. So whenever we went into hypnosis, people have got these beautiful waves going and their coherence is high and their body's in a beautiful space. When I took them to divine, the coherence number went way up high, but their heart went into anxiety.
Oh,
So I was
interesting.
like, interesting. So I think that we are taking people deeper and deeper into trance, and then we're going up into gamma, which is the same as psychedelics. So
You
when you think about a
mentioned
waking state, we're going above the waking state, which is ultra conscious.
you've worked with psychedelics. You mean you've worked with people with drugs or getting those effects in hypnosis?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like medicine is not that, those kind of medicines are not 100% safe. They're being used way too much by people that don't know what they're doing. But for me, I was fascinating in how can we get these states and people using the mind, because we can. And like I said, SP is the closest I've ever found using this kind of process on people to get that kind of feeling of connected that you tend to get on certain medicines where you become one with all that is and all of that kind of stuff. So SP is the one that I've found can get to those states when you work with someone quite quickly, especially when you teach them to be in states and open their eyes and have kind of fun. Yeah, does that make sense?
Actually, I just wanted to share something that I just experienced in the last week. So a friend of mine decided to exit the planet in his physical and hung himself.
Great.
And so normally I would just tap into their soul anyway and feel them. But I actually did it differently. And I asked Superconscious to connect me to him. That was 2 days after he did it. And it was really felt incredible with his sadness and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And chatted to him for a little while, and then actually asked Superconsciousness to shift that sad state that his soul's in so that he can move through wherever it needs to go in a quicker state. And that really shifted. I just was at his funeral yesterday. Now, and then same thing, I got to the funeral, there was something that told me I had to be there. And my arm started going off in an SP way, and I went, okay, so I am here for a reason, yep. And then I found, because his ex-boyfriend, my high school sweetheart was this one's friend, and both boys have committed suicide, so 2 out of the 3. So I ended up at the back of the church and just being guided for SP, sending energy to work on his family. And stuff, and then come back home last night. And again, then I had both my high school sweetheart that he killed himself about 10 years ago, and then the one that just clocked himself off. And then I had them both in and around me last night. And then Superconscious was kind of using me to help do stuff with them. I was in a very entranced state, but it was pretty cool. From
Interesting, eh?
Yeah.
Like shifting the feeling. I had this experience where someone had lost someone, but not actually lost them. The person was lost. Like lost while out doing sports stuff, and they had search parties out. And I remember driving, thinking about this person, and the next minute I had the worst pain in my body, and then I had this big grin. And I was like, oh my God, this is just, I'm driving. Come on, I'm driving. This is not me. I didn't even know the person. And then my finger started moving. It's very interesting when you start doing SPA with these bloody fingers. And I was like, and so I knew straight away this person had passed over, but they were fine and all that kind of stuff. And it's very odd. It's odd, but yeah, it's really interesting when you are open. After my experience I had in 2019, I had a lot of experiences like that, but it's kind of died down now that I'm back to normal old boring Justine again. But yeah, interesting, eh? There's so many things you can do with this protocol. I used to do, like, say, Christoph, my friend that teaches, he'll message me and say, hey, can you hook up with my son? And just and my hand, I'll go, okay, he can have my hand, and we'll ask questions and stuff. There's so many things when you trust the process that you can do to help other people, as long as you've always got permission to do it from Superconscious, and that you always keep yourself safe afterwards. like
Yeah.
making sure you just that you're not taking anything on from anybody else.
Mm.
But yeah, so with I think before we were talking about going into the life between lives and stuff. Like I said, because SP is a really safe way of working, and it's even a way that if you're in a situation, like I said, where I've had people suddenly, there's someone next to me and they're not happy, and they're seeing spirit and stuff, and we're sending to the light. It's such a cool way of working where we don't even need to know what's going on for people. We just need to ask that it be shifted. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I like how safe SP is, especially when we're working in spiritual stuff. So if something freaky did start happening, like what I would do is, hey, super conscious, the client that's in front of me, put them in divine. When it's done, let me know. Right, super conscious, sort out whatever's going on here. Do you know what I mean? I don't even need to know about it. When it's done, let me know. And we know that everything's quite safe without getting too into stuff. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Pardon?
I mean, why do you think that is? I mean, something that occurred to me then was, well, maybe superconscious mind is spiritual, right? And you can work in that realm.
Well, I think I think everything's connected. When I describe superconscious to clients, well, in normal hypnotherapy, what I find is when I'm talking to somebody in hypnosis, there comes a time where they go, I am eating food because, to Justine is eating food because. So there's a switch that happens in the mind where we go from I to third person. And that happens with depth of trance or coming out of the body dissociation. Does that make sense? So that's where we go from Justine is eating, I am eating food because when I was 3, I got bitten by a dog, to they'll talk to you in a nice, softer voice. Justine is eating food because she was bitten by a dog. Okay, so we know that there's been a change in the brain. So when you're working in normal hypnotherapy with depth, you'll get that change pretty quickly. What I find with superconscious is I always explain to clients that superconscious is them. I never say it's something from outside of themselves, because every time I've ever said that, getting the fingers can be freaking difficult for some people. Do you know what I mean? Because they're waiting for this thing to come and lift their finger up. So when I explain to them that superconscious is a part of you, it's you, it just has a lot more understanding than you. And to me, it's the gateway. Superconscious is the gateway to other places. Do you know what I mean? So it's a higher part. The reason why I always say superconscious is quite earthly or quite a part of us is because I've never had a session where I've called in higher self or groups or other beings where I've had to say, come on, they're not 3 anymore. Do you really think you should be scared of a puppy at 40? To superconscious, do you know what I mean? It's like, are we really having this negotiation? Do you know what I mean? So whereas if I was working with really high parts of the person, it wouldn't even be a conversation, it'd be done. Do you know what I mean? So I do find that when I've worked with superconscious before in a talking way, Justine is doing this because I've still had to have some conversations that are kind of
Do
so
you really believe that superconscious is personal to the individual, though?
I don't believe superconscious is really a thing. I think it's I think that us humans give names to explain experiences that are happening to people. So I don't believe in that we could cut a person open and, hey, there's a superconscious there. But what I have found is that the more earth grounded a person is, the more I have to ask questions. So if someone comes in and they're open-minded and they believe in all the stuff and they've done a lot of work, then superconscious will be this really profound, amazing, all-knowing being. If I've got someone coming in for smoking and I'm working with superconscious, it is probably going to argue with me that it really still likes the smokes. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think there's when we go to level 4.2, this is superconscious. I think it's just a name and a term that we use to describe a state that we go into where we can get answers that aren't normally available by the conscious. So I think it's dependent on the person 100%. It's like when we talk about conscious and subconscious, it's not a thing. It's really great to have those words, because how else are we going to explain to a client that we're working with deeper parts of the mind without being able to name it? But is it really a thing? It's not. They can't determine what is, what isn't. So I think superconscious is just another word. I like how, when I explain those brainwaves and they're doing the coherence, I like how suddenly in SP or in divine we go up to above conscious. So that kind of is super conscious, isn't it? We're going up into gamma, whereas the other brain waves going down into theta, delta sleep state, which we do in hypnosis, where we go into the imaginative part and REM sleep, we tend to be going down in trance, depths of trance. But in SP, we turn around and we go up to here, where our heart rate variability is showing high coherence and anxiety, which is similar to what people get on psychedelics and stuff, which means it's gamma brain waves, which to me is becoming super conscious. When you take medicine that takes you up into gamma, what happens with your eyes open? You see the energy between the trees. You can tell how we're all connected. Your hearing turns up, your eyesight turns up. You can see the ants crawling on the floor. Everything is super. So I reckon we delve in that kind of area where we have more knowing than we normally do. Does that make sense? But it's definitely dependent on the person you're working with, because I've had conversations with super conscious that are just, oh my God, are we seriously having this conversation? Like, really? Whereas I've had it with other people where this beautiful being is talking to me and I'm like, she wants to lose another 8 kilos. And I feel like, so there's this profound voice coming out of this person, and we're talking about 8 kilos. We could be asking the meaning of life right now, or these profound questions, and we're talking weight. So it goes like both ways. I remember the first time that happened where I didn't know what to ask, which is why I like SP, because I got taught these protocols where you put people into these amazing states, and then you're left with this voice and you don't know what to ask. You're like, okay. So I think it's really individual. But once again, like anything else, I think the term superconscious is just a way of explaining an experience that people are having when we put people in trance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was
so
surprised
great.
when sorry, you go, Kay.
I'm just so grateful that you explained that about the gamma, because when I work on my own, I have an underlying a weird anxiety when I go to high or divine. I'm calm, but yet but if someone else is doing it on me, it doesn't seem to be so profound. And I couldn't understand why I would feel this kind of revved up feeling as I'm. Yeah. Thank you.
Open your eyes and divine. Do a lot
I
of
have.
Yeah, because if you do, the more time you spend in divine, the more your brain is learning to be in a divine state. And if your energy going out is bringing energy back in, I'd prefer to have divine energy going out than fear. You know what I mean?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. What were you saying, Nick?
I was just going to say, when I read in your material about what you say to people about superconscious, I was a little surprised, but you've explained it really well. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only reason why I do say that, like I said, is because in session it's a lot easier for people, especially when you're doing people like I use SP and weight loss. So my fourth session with a weight loss client will be an SP session. And I always just explain to them, super conscious is you. So you might feel like you're lifting up the finger might just lift up, or you might get a sense or knowing of which finger to lift up. Either way, super conscious is still a part of you. So it's really, and that language makes the session flow a lot easier. But to me, if it was going to be a thing, it would be like super conscious would flare out into everything else, because it's still uniquely answering questions about me personally when I was 5. Do you know what I mean? Is there anger there? Is there stuff there? Is there stuff there? When you work with someone quite often, like if you find someone in the group or in any of your groups that you do with SP that you really gel with, that your mind likes, you work with them every week and you get that trust so damn good, because that's when weird shit happens. That's when channeling happens. And like me and Christoph, we do weird stuff. We haven't done it for a while, but we used to catch up every week and weird things would happen. Good things would happen because the trust is there so much. Yeah.
No, I've been doing that too, actually, with SP practitioners in particular. So
Yeah.
Any of the groups I go to, I ask if people want to catch up.
Yeah. And
Like
work with one. Yeah. Work with one.
Mm.
Work with one quite a few times over a period, because that's when you'll get the out of your body stuff happen. Because for us to leave our body and go to weird places in a safe way, not in a way due to trauma, our brains are wired to dissociate from trauma, and that's why people that have had a lot of trauma tend to be open to spiritual stuff, because it's a thing that happens in our body. Like when someone crashes in a car and they say, I'm just watching myself getting pulled out of the car, our mind is wired to dissociate into other experiences. But when you learn to do that in a trusting, loving way with someone that's got your back, and your mind 100% knows that no matter what, this person can get me out of it, weird stuff happens, magic stuff happens, and that's when you go into really super states that you wouldn't normally be able to do listening to recordings or on your own, or even just in a session with someone that you've met 3 times. Do you know, the magic happens when you really trust someone. Yeah.
So can you share with us an example of, like you said, when you're working with Christoph, a sample of some weird stuff?
Just things like he would need some information about, so he's got some ideas around health and what's going on at a deep level. He'd just go to Divine Gone, and then he'd ask an energy to come through, and they'll have conversations about things that I'd have nothing to do with, like atoms and bringing in health technology that isn't a part of humanity yet, and explaining how it works. This coming out of my mouth, I don't know none of that. And I made a pact with him that he doesn't tell me what comes out of my mouth, because it will freak me out too much. Do you know what I mean? So I go off, and all I remember of the sessions is I'm in a garden with flowers. Like, that's all I know. Do you know what I mean? So, and that with me having ADHD, so I've got a real grounded, busy mind, to be able to do that using SP is pretty cool. But like I said, people can do that naturally anyway, but to be able to have those kind of things happening in a brain that wouldn't normally let anyone even do fork in the road and hypnosis on them. Do you know, that's me. I teach people, but they're not touching my mind. Do you know what I mean? Not basic stuff. So it's and that kind of stuff happened through knowing 100% that he's got me. Like, no matter what happens, there's been times that and who knows what it is, but there's been times that what he calls walk-ins come in. And he's like,
really?
yeah, can you bring a loving feeling into Justine? And the thing says, no. He goes, okay, run along then. Move along. Why are you here? Just curious. Okay, well, it's time for you to go. Do you know what I mean? But I know that he can sort out anything that happens. So that's what I said. When you have that trust with someone, and you get that just from doing it, then your mind can just get better and better at exploring different places. Yeah? Does that make sense? So that's why you find someone that's got your back, and explore and play. And that's where you could start playing with life between lives and past lives. And someone, I think Deb's coming on later. Deb learnt past life. I don't know if it was last year or the year before that we did this course. I can't even remember. It was with you, Linka. But Deb told me that her and one of the girls has been meeting up often since that training, every couple of weeks, going to past lives, and they're just documenting them, and they have really cool stuff happening. So to me, that's quite, I didn't even know they were doing that. I thought that was quite cool that they could, you know, keep on, you know, going into stuff and exploring things and going to different lifetimes and having fun. But geez, when you've got that trust, I've got a friend, the one that you can watch soon, Caroline, because we've got the connection of being able to hypnotize her just without even her eyes closed. If we do past lives now, it's like, just close your eyes and she'll be there in a second. Now, she's not easy to hypnotize for anyone else. That's just because we know each other. Do you know what I mean? And that's the kind of connection you can get with people, where you can get to a space where you can do a lot of cool things that you normally wouldn't. Well, I'm going to turn off the recording.